Going to try to do a very quick tour this morning of my gardens. Mainly quick because the mosquitoes are really bad this morning. Anyway, we'll start out here in the front yard where we have a patch with a few shrubs planted. Hopefully we'll fill in this space, and some wild hops that I've got growing up above. I get hops off of these each year. Hopefully I'll get enough eventually to make some beer. Around here in the front we've got some gardens that are coming along nicely. They were just new last year. This one, and over here one that's a little less robust. But I'm doing this today because over the next 3 days I've got a series of garden tours organized, and so I'll give you a taste of what there is to see right now. So welcome to my paradise. Over here we'll start with a milkweed garden with 10 different species of milkweeds in it. I'm actually looking at possibly putting in some irrigation this year so that these can get a little more water. It is very dry up in this part of my yard. It's a very sandy soil and the water disappears. The spring ephemerals fill this up each year, but this time of year not much to see under these large sugar maples. Great spot to hang a hammock though between those two, and I'm going to have to get it back out again soon, I guess. Where things start to get a little more interesting is up here closer to the house. So I've got some Spirea alba or meadowsweet growing there that is filling in this space. Down below I have clammy ground cherry and a few other things. On this side, one of my new favorite plants is Monarda punctata, which is dotted horse mint or spotted bee balm. I just love those flowers, and I don't know where they were all my life, but I discovered them 3 years ago and I just can't get enough of them. Some more black-eyed Susan. In behind here, the darker purple patches are hoary vervain. And then in the center, just finished blooming now, this area here was all sundrops. So while they were in flower, that was just a brilliant spot of yellow. The painted lady caterpillars have all become butterflies and left. So this nice little patch of pearly everlasting will soon send up some flowers. In the background, we've got a couple of orange patches of volunteer butterfly milkweed, and up in here we have some New England aster in front of my witch hazel. Another really cute little plant I have over here, I think anyway, is this narrow leaf vervain, which is very delicate little flowers. As you can see, the flowers are getting to the top of the spike, so they're pretty near their end, but they've been blooming for a couple of weeks now. And up front I've got gray stem goldenrod, but I've got a few other things that have volunteered in here, so I'm not sure which is which till it comes out. New Jersey tea is finally done blooming, and over here I just randomly stuck in some Virginia mountain mint, which is now flowering lovely, and a volunteer rough cinquefoil in the middle here. So that's kind of my circle garden, high and dry, mostly full sun, but very dry soils. So all of these seem to do quite well in those soils. We come around here, we have my water feature, and we've got some broadleaf arrowhead growing here. Started out as one plant, and now I think there's 3 or 4 in there. I tried growing some pickleweed in here, but it didn't survive. And as you can see over here, we have cardinal flower, volunteer, actually just starting to produce flower buds, so it won't be long, and a few more over there that are also volunteers. And tucked down in here is green dragon, related to Jack in the Pulpit. Fairly rare plant, my understanding, but I'm just glad it survived. In the center, some bearberry, some harebells. The blue flag iris all around the pond has finished for the year and has lots of seed pods forming. Over in this garden, we've got some early goldenrod, which is just starting to get a bit of a yellow tinge to the flowers. And down in there, lots of Parlin's pussy toes, more volunteer butterfly milkweed, and looks like we finally have some of the early goldenrod starting. The flowers are open, so that's the first of the goldenrods. And those plants actually are volunteers that are growing there as well. Dwarf chinkapin oak, and a few other things in here. Now we're getting down into mosquito country, so I may walk and talk faster. We have some yellow giant hyssop, which I measured yesterday at just over 7 feet, but I'm pretty sure it's grown since then by the looks of it. My Kentucky coffee tree, which makes a nice light dappled shade. Go away, mosquitoes. I've got at least 4 of them flying around my face right now. The Bog Garden is going to be dismantled this fall because I planted way too many big plants in here in my excitement of getting things going. So most of the big things, in fact the Joe Pye weed that is growing up here and over here, are all volunteers. But they're all going to come out this fall and be moved back to an area back here that I've created a wetland. We've got lots of bee balm. I just love the bright reds that it throws in the garden this time of year. In the center, you'll see little splashes of red in there. Those are some Canada lilies. The Michigan lily is now finished blooming. It was over in front of these. Some more goldenrods. The white snake root is now flowering, as is the Culver's root that I have growing in here. So you can see the Culver's root there. And these white flowers here are all the white snake root. So in another few days, those are going to be pretty showy. And you can see the Canada lilies tucked in through it there. On this side, we've got a few different kinds of goldenrods, and we have a very healthy patch of poke milkweed, Asclepias exaltata. It's finished blooming, and as you can see, it's now got lots of seed pods coming. So I should have a good crop next year. And this is the new wetland, where all those tall plants from the bog are going to be placed. And I'm bringing water down. I'm going to dig the trench in August that'll go all the way up to the house and tie in up there so I can bring water down here whenever this needs it. It is lined with a liner to help to keep it moist, and I mixed peat moss in with this very sandy loam soil. In the back country here we have a garden that used to extend out in here, but now is restricted to this area, and I have just totally ignored it so far this year till the wetland gets finished. And here's what happens when you have a crop of Impatiens pallida, or yellow jewelweed. It will take over wherever you let it. The nice thing is it's an annual, so they're easy to control, and I love them, so I just let them grow in this spot. Some more here that are quite a bit bigger. Back in the back corner we have lots of ferns and other plants growing in here. I think I've got 18 different species of ferns on my property. We've got some black cohosh in there, and beside it over there further I've got a couple of purple meadow rue and tall meadow rue. And by the way, the only thing planted in here was that northern hackberry tree, and in the center here we've got an orange fruited horse gentian. Everything else in here are volunteers, and that includes boneset, blue lobelia, Penstemon digitalis, foxglove beard tongue, and wild columbine, and of course all the jewelweed, and probably a few other things by now. And they're just all volunteers. This garden is a little mix of lots of things, including a volunteer redbud tree, and over there a volunteer elderberry, and I've got some other things growing in here now. I just put some stones down so I have better access through here. Here's my anise hyssop, and I've got a few cute little things tucked down in there, but maybe we'll do a tour just of each garden at a time eventually. My land of giants here, they're 8, 9, almost 10 feet tall, some of the plants in here now. And over here, this is a new flower bed this year. I put in some pale leaf sunflower, some field pussy toes, pale spiked lobelia, some wild chives, and of course my patch of Jerusalem artichoke, which is growing in a barrel. Back in here, I've got wild black currants, and I've got a really good crop coming along this year, and it looks like we're finally starting to get a little bit of coloration happening, so I might even get enough to make jam. Virgensbauer clematis growing along the fence. Cup plants there, and around behind it, that tall thing is wing stem. And we're getting some fruit forming on this. It doesn't get a lot of berries each year. I don't know whether that's a pollinator issue or a plant issue. Oh, we have Solidago bicolor, which is silver rod, one of our white golden rods growing here. We've got some flowering spurge in front of a volunteer lance leaf coreopsis. And new this year and blooming already is some purple prairie clover. And so that's kind of this end of the yard. My hazelnuts are doing well. Purple flowering raspberries are getting near done blooming, but they may send a second flush out in a while, or they'll just come out slowly a bit at a time. This garden in the middle here was new last year. This is where I moved a lot of the plants that had been down where the wetland is going into this patch here, plus added a few things to it. One of the challenges that I have every once in a while is the neighborhood rabbit likes to come in and shorten my plants. But that's what you do when you grow things for the wildlife, I guess. We have some Calms St. John's wort growing here. We've got lots of annual fleabane. And this plant here is pale corydalis. It's about 3.5 feet tall, about 3 feet across this way and 5 feet that way. This plant's supposed to get about a foot tall and a foot wide, so obviously it likes it there. It was a volunteer last fall, and it has been blooming since May, and it is full of seed pods, which means there's babies from earlier seed dropping this spring. And lots of seed pods coming along on my Cooper's milk vetch, which is a rare species, and the bags on there to collect seeds because I have promised them to some folks. And then we're back up to the front again. So that was probably the quickest tour I've ever given. Well, I guess I should mention my wild black cherry, and it is loaded as well with fruit this year. It was quite spectacular this spring in flower. This tree has only been here for about 4 or 5 years. It was about 8 feet tall when I moved it from another part of the property, and the tree is probably 30 feet high now. So things like to grow big here. So anyway, that's a very quick tour of the garden, and hopefully one day you'll get a chance to see it too.